Additional combinations that she's she rocked her on cue!
Paige VanZant is something of a unicorn from the world of martial arts. Through a combination of good looks, charisma, and fighting skills,
Paige VanZant with the stoppage win in her UFC debut!
She has managed to go beyond the fight ring and even become more of a media persona than a fighter. Today, we will look back at the athlete's journey of the main media star of martial arts. We often hear stories about fighters who have been involved in one sport or another since childhood and later transitioned to MMA. But Paige VanZant's path to becoming a martial artist is radically different. As a young girl, she only danced and did not think about martial arts. But one day, the usual pattern was shattered. When Paige was only 14, she was raped by a whole gang of classmates, and it changed her life. At the instruction of her father, VanZant went to a mixed martial arts training gym, and the classes so captivated her that she just didn't stay, but decided to tie her future to MMA. My dad was a huge UFC fan, and there was a gym near us. He convinced me to go and try a class which I really enjoyed. I was always a competitor. I did have a few amateur boxing matches. After 3 years of hard training, the girl made her debut in the co-main event of one of the Texas promotion events. Her opponent was the same debutante, Nicole Garza. Nicole practiced a wrestling style and tried to deal with Paige on the ground, and she took her game. VanZant was unable to get up from underneath her opponent in the first round, but she was able to hold Garza down from there on her own, which pocketed this round. At the beginning of the third round, Paige delivered a knee to Nicole's head, but her opponent still transferred Paige down and nearly finished her. Nevertheless, the future star earned the victory by split decision. The pretty blonde appealed to the Texas public, so soon enough she was invited back to fight in one of the local outdoor events. Debutante Amber Stotzenberger was her counterpart. Amber also took advantage of VanZant's gaps in wrestling and easily took her down at the start, but then nearly lost an arm. Paige intimidated her opponent with her jiu-jitsu and was soon able to return to the stand-up. Early in the second round, the future star found herself on the canvas after missed shot, but quickly rehabilitated and confidently took the rest of the encounter, ending it in full mount. The talented beauty from Texas quickly became known to the major MMA leagues. At that time, women's fights were just gaining popularity, so matchmakers were actively looking for those who could be promoted. So, with just 2 pro fights, 12 Gauge made it to the infamous Invicta League, where she shared a cage with the future UFC fighter Tecia Torres. Tecia turned out to be a much better fighter. She was interrupting VanZant on the hands, delivering her quick kicks, and dodging all the counter shots. Paige relied on the clinch and transfers out of it, but once on the ground in the second round, she was close to giving up 3 times. A near-close rear-naked choke looked especially dangerous. Torres showed a different level of skills and won with 30-27.
Torres wants it.
After her unsuccessful debut at Invicta, she left the promotion and returned to the previous level of regional leagues. She needed to gain experience and skills to compete in the top tier. That's what she did. Paige flew into her opponent with a body kick and pinned her against the cage. Then Courtney decided to attack with a guillotine. However, the 12 Gauge got out of the clinch, went behind her back with lightning speed, and choked the debutante. Paige's record was 3-1, and she seemed to be still raw. But UFC bosses liked the charismatic and bright fighter girl, so they sent her a contract. VanZant did not hesitate to put her signature, and after 1.5 years of downtime, she stepped into the octagon of the best promotion in the world. In her first fight, she faced the undefeated Kaylin Curran. From the first seconds, the feisty debutante put forth her best effort and was dangerous on all fronts. Kaylin tried to take her opponent by wrestling, but on the ground, VanZant almost took home her opponent's arm, and later was ready to stomp her head into the canvas. The pace of the fight gradually slowed, but in the third round, the would-be star exploded with a takedown and finished her opponent off. The 20-year-old girl in yellow gave away the fight of her life, and with that victory, she was immediately thrown into the top 15, in a spot in tune with her nickname. After beating Curran, VanZant added to her popularity, and in February of 2015, she signed a sponsorship deal with Reebok. After taking a bit of a break after Curran's TKO, the 12-gauge got the name of her next victim. This time, VanZant had a serious test waiting for her. Felice Herrig. The girl had performed everywhere, from XFC to Invicta, and she had a lot of experience. Almost giving up her hand on the submission at the beginning, the rest of the time the energetic girl dragged Felice from different positions. She was shooting with her knees in the stand-up and connected with a massive ground and pound on the floor, and several times she was close to the finish. Herrig had a couple of good moments, but they all paired in comparison to Paige's fiery performance. It was hard for UFC fans not to notice this flaming star, and soon VanZant's potential was the talk of the town. Sure, her attractive looks did their part to advance her career, but the way 12-gauge fought was something unbelievable. Immediately after the fight, she was promoted up to number 6, and then she found another springboard. It was Alex Chambers, a participant of the women's season of Tough, going with a record of 1-2 in the promotion. The entire fight was a true Muay Thai terror from VanZant, who literally trashed her opponent with elbows, uppercuts, but especially the heaviest knees. Chambers took about 100 of those punches, and in the third round, once she was down, she couldn't defend herself anymore and surrendered from the armbar.
12-gauge, Paige.
The young and promising American was already preparing for her title fight. Authoritative media compared her to Ronda Rousey, and the fans were eager to see VanZant's next fight. In order to advance to the title fight, 12-gauge needed to pass someone from the top 5, and that person turned out to be Rose Namajunas, who ranked 3rd in the division and was coming after a victory. The girls were given to headline the Fight Night Series event. Already in the first round, the Tough alum outstroked VanZant in the stand-up and elbowed her face on the ground. Blood poured into Paige's face the entire night, but she didn't give up and kept fighting every second. She repeatedly came close to tapping from the submission, but found a way to get out. But in the final 5 minutes, strength finally left the battered beauty, and she lost by choke. The defeat knocked 12-gauge back a bit in the rankings, but it had no effect on her popularity. Everyone around admired the girl's resilience and expected her to come back stronger. Moreover, she was invited to participate in the Dancing with the Stars show, where she took 2nd place at the end of the season. As for fights, the fight with Namajunas proved to be a telling match for matchmakers, and they decided to lower the level of opposition for VanZant, taking her to Bec Rawlins with a 2-2 record in the league. We cannot say for sure, but it seems that the D-class from Rose changed Paige's mentality. She lost her aggression. This time, she fought very cautiously, trying not to miss too much and waiting. In the second round, it became clear what. Lightning-fast left head kick from the scissors went straight to the head of Beck and sent her to the canvas. A few extra shots, and Paige is back on top. Many expected VanZant to be back on the winning track, but no one even imagined that it would be so brutal and flashy. With such a victory, she soared in the rankings again, and her stock skyrocketed. Management continued to bet on this girl, and therefore it was decided to let her headline another event, paired with Michelle Waterson. The spectacular karate fighter transferred to the league from Invicta, and her real level had to be tested. Michelle's karate stance was a problem for Paige, since she didn't know how to get closer to her opponent and regularly got hit by Michelle's nasty sidekicks. But that was only the beginning. Pretty quickly, Waterson moved the 12-gauge to the canvas and got her back, where it all ended. If there was no shame in losing to the number 3 ranking, it was hard to write off the loss to Waterson as mere bad luck. It was obvious that VanZant had changed. Something was wrong with her, and the year's downtime reinforced that suspicion. In early 2018, the once promising girl in MMA had an opportunity to start her rise again. To do so, she needed to defeat Jessica Rose Clark, who appeared in the UFC with a 7-4 record. Paige didn't do much of anything in the fight. She wasn't herself. She was giving a space to her opponent and backing away a lot. Even in the ground game, where she used to really intimidate her opponents, she couldn't come up with anything tolerable. The journeyman Clark had no problem taking her down, and she took 2 rounds out of 3 on the scorecards of the 2 judges. After the fight, it was revealed that VanZant had already broken her arm in the first round. Defeats and tough injuries came raining down like from the horn of plenty, but that was the least of her worries. On the personal front, things were more than fine. In the fall of 2018, Paige VanZant got married to MMA fighter Austin Vanderford. Anyway, during her time in the UFC, 12 Gauge had already gained a solid fan base and was now earning money from her videos and Instagram ads. At one point, it seemed like the talented beauty was done fighting, but nearly a year later, it was announced that VanZant would return to fight another MMA internet celebrity, Rachel Ostovich. This bout was marked as confrontation between the sex symbols of women's MMA. Paige went into the fight with a blank stare, and when she was transferred to the ground, she just lay there, not even thinking about doing anything. Rachel calmly held her takedowns.
You gotta move. Here you see VanZant drop the left hand. That's what she had to do.
And dominated from the top. But in the second segment, she lost position and VanZant got her back. In that moment, we saw again a wild and furious Paige explode with a hail of punches. And then she went for a powerful armbar and finished Ostovich.
The elbow seems to slip out.
A real explosion of emotions and a victory against Rachel gave fans hope that their favorite had not yet faded completely and could show cool fights. However, something didn't work out for Paige, and she dropped out again due to injuries that plagued her. This time for a long year and a half. The girl was making good money on social media, and when it came time to come back, the 12 Gauge was given not the easiest opponent. The Brazilian, Amanda Ribas, with a 3-0 record in the UFC. After moving around a bit, Amanda decided to cut to the chase and easily moved her opponent to the canvas. After holding Paige on the ground for a bit, the jiu-jitsu master promptly found an arm and went for an armbar. VanZant resisted for a while, but once Ribas increased the pressure, it was over. However, despite the bad situation, Paige was soon offered an exclusive contract for 4 fights at Bare Knuckle FC, for which she received more than $1 million. About 6 months after signing the contract, in February of 2021, VanZant made her debut in a new sport. She was welcomed by the already experienced Britain Hart. Paige rose to the occasion, but Britain's experience in bare knuckle boxing made a difference. Hart took it by her pressure and experience.
Remaining round number 4.
She was also ready to brawl. Soon, the Bare Knuckle FC roster received another star addition in the notorious Rachel Ostovich, who immediately got a rematch against VanZant. But by the rules of bare knuckle boxing, in the first round, VanZant was able to get in a clinch and make a dirty boxing trick. But in the next round, Ostovich was already working on counterattacks and not letting VanZant get any closer. In the third, Rachel began to hit even more accurately, and in the fourth, she delivered her opponent a standing knockdown. The final round was a competitive one, but the Hawaii native won by legitimate decision. VanZant was later supposed to fight Carissa Segala, but unfortunately that fight never happened. She also appeared in the ring of the pro wrestling organization AEW.
Paige VanZant, going right at Brandy Rhodes.
However, many believe that we will hardly see her in a fight ring again, and there is reason to believe that.
Paige VanZant with the stoppage win.
Pounded, armbar, spinning for the armbar. Beautiful job.
It is all over.
Beautiful job.
Paige VanZant.
Well, every time Ostovich has tried to take VanZant down, she's been able to...
Oh, she was out. She was out. Oh, she got it.
Traditional combinations that she's had.
Oh, she's going to finish this fight. It is all over.